Imagine a city with walls so massive they seemed untouchable, triple fortifications, stretching 6.5 kilometers. Walls that made kings retreat, emperors despair, and caliphs dream in vain. A city crowned as the queen of all cities. A city believed to be impossible to conquer. That city was Constantinople, the beating heart of the Byzantine Empire. Founded in 330 CE by Emperor Constantine the Great, Byzantium rose as the proud heir of the Eastern Roman Empire. Under Emperor Justinian I, it reached its golden age. Roman laws were codified into the Corpus Juris Civilis, the foundation of modern European law. And the Hagia Sophia sword, a dome of 55 meters high, the greatest church in Christendom for 1,000 years. Byzantium seemed eternal. But history spares no empire. In the 7th century, a storm rose from the deserts of Arabia, Islam. Within mere decades, the Byzantine Empire lost its richest provinces. Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, the very heart of its wealth and grain supply. The lifeblood of the empire was cut away and Constantinople stood exposed. Twice, the new caliphate tested the empire's might. From 674 to 678, Arab fleets swarmed the Bosporus. Again in 717, an even greater siege descended upon Constantinople, threatening to end the empire once and for all. But the city endured. Its salvation lay not only in its towering Theodosian walls, but in a secret weapon that terrified the world. Greek fire, this mysterious liquid flame, launched from bronze tubes, clung to ships and men alike, burning even upon the sea. Entire fleets turned to floating pyres, their crews swallowed by fire and smoke. To enemies, it was as if the Byzantines commanded the very fury of the elements. Constantinople survived, but at a price. The empire was no longer the vast dominion of Justinian's age. It had become a fortress, battered yet unbroken, guarding the gateway between east and west. But survival was only a delay of fate. In 1054, the unity of Christendom itself shattered. The Great Schism tore the Church in two, Rome in the west, Orthodoxy in the east. What began as disputes over theology and authority hardened into permanent division. The spiritual bond that once linked Constantinople and Rome was broken, leaving the Byzantine world more isolated than ever. That fracture soon deepened into betrayal. In 1204, the unthinkable happened. The Fourth Crusade, launched under the banner of Christ to defend Byzantium, turned its swords against the very city it had sworn to protect. Latin Crusaders stormed Constantinople. For 3 days, chaos reigned. Fire devoured its districts. The palaces of emperors were stripped bare. Priceless relics and treasures, icons, chalices, holy relics, were carried off to the west. Even Hagia Sophia, the jewel of Christendom, was desecrated. Horses were stabled inside its sacred hall. The Queen of Cities bled as never before. It was not the Muslim armies of old that brought her low, but fellow Christians. The betrayal cut deeper than any sword. And though Byzantium would rise again, crowned with a pale shadow of its former glory, the wound of 1204 never healed. After 1204, Byzantium was never the same. Its coffers emptied, its palaces plundered, its provinces slipping away. What remained of the empire was but a fragile shadow of its former majesty. Though Constantinople was retaken from the Latin occupiers in 1261, the glory of Justinian's empire was gone. The Queen of Cities had been scarred, its strength forever diminished. And from the east, a new power rose, a force relentless, disciplined, and hungry for conquest, the Ottoman Turks. step by step. Their crescent banner spread across the land. Anatolia fell, once the heartland of Byzantium. The Balkans, too, were claimed, their kingdoms absorbed into the swelling Ottoman realm. By the 15th century, Constantinople stood alone, an island of Byzantium adrift in a sea of Ottoman might. Its walls still rose high, but behind them lay a city weary and broken, a relic of past greatness awaiting its final trial. Then came 1453. A young sultan, barely 21-year-old, ascended the Ottoman throne, Mehmed II. To the world seemed too young, too inexperienced, too untested, but the world was wrong. Mehmed's vision was clear: Constantinople must fall. To strangle the city's lifeline, he raised the colossal fortress of Rumeli Hizara upon the Bosporus, its towers looming like a clenched fist, cutting off supplies and reinforcements from the Black Sea. But walls alone would not bring down the Queen of Cities. For this, Mehmed sought the genius of an engineer, a Hungarian master of metal. Under his hands, monstrous cannons were born, bronze giants, 8 meters long, hurling stone balls 600 kilograms in weight. When they thundered, the earth shook. When they struck, walls once thought eternal cracked and crumbled. As spring of 1453 dawned, Constantinople faced its reckoning. Before its walls gathered the might of an empire reborn, led by a sultan whose ambition knew no bounds. Inside, a weary city prayed for a miracle. The final siege had begun. On April 6, 1453, the siege began. Before the mighty Theodosian walls stood the vast host of Mehmed II. We 80,000 Ottomans, soldiers, engineers, janissaries, and artillerymen. Against them, within the weary city, stood barely 7,000 defenders, Byzantines, mercenaries, and a few Venetian allies.
Before launching the final assault, Mehmed II still sought a peaceful surrender. He sent envoys into the city with a clear offer: if Constantinople surrendered, no blood would be shed. Churches would be left standing, the inhabitants would be spared, and Constantine V would be allowed to continue ruling in other lands. But the last Byzantine emperor rejected the offer firmly. He declared words that would be remembered for ages: "To surrender this city is not my right. This city has been entrusted to us by God. I would rather die with my people than live in humiliation." With that rejection, the path to peace was closed. Mehmed was no longer hesitant. He swore before his troops the city would belong to Islam, or he would be buried beneath its walls. Then he unveiled a strategy that stunned even his fiercest enemies, one that seemed impossible. Unable to break the great chain blocking his fleet from the Golden Horn, he ordered something unthinkable. Ships were dragged over land. Oil-soaked timber and unwavering determination carried the Ottoman galleys across hills and valleys, passing through the city's defenses. At dawn, the Byzantines saw something that defied belief: the Ottoman fleet inside the Golden Horn itself. Constantinople was besieged not only from land, but also from the sea. Hope was lost. The trap tightened. On May 29, 1453, the final assault began. Before dawn, drums thundered, trumpets sounded, and the massive Ottoman army surged forward in waves. Cannons roared for the last time, and the ancient walls of Constantinople, battered for weeks, trembled, cracked, and finally collapsed. Ottoman soldiers poured through the breaches. Chaos engulfed the Queen of Cities. Steel clashed in narrow streets. Screams of the dying filled the sky. and smoke billowed from burning rooftops. At the heart of the storm stood the last emperor, Constantine V Palaiologos. Offered an escape, he refused. Removing his imperial purple cloak, he drew his sword and shouted, "Is there no one willing to die with me today?" Alongside his soldiers, he fought amidst the ruins of his city, ultimately swallowed by the chaos of battle. His body was never found. The Roman Empire, born under emperors, crowned with glory by Constantine, was no more. After more than 1,000 years, the Queen of Cities had fallen. And upon its ruins, a new empire arose. The world would change forever. But Byzantine did not truly die in 1453. No, its soul had been torn apart 2 centuries earlier. In 1204, when the Crusaders, brothers in faith, shattered the empire from within. Since then, the Byzantine Empire had been but a shadow, a corpse wrapped in fading glory, staggering towards its inevitable destiny. The 1453 siege was not its death but its burial, and its tomb was sealed by the hand of Mehmed II, the young sultan who transformed the weary remnants into the jewel of a new empire. Thus ended Byzantium, not merely in the flames of foreign conquest, but also through betrayal, division, and destruction. The Queen of Cities had stood for over 1,000 years, yet its fall had been foreordained long before the cannons roared. History's lesson is merciless. No empire falls in a single night. It dies slowly from within.